Warning, the podcast you're about to hear has a unique, conservative perspective and may be politically incorrect, containing some controversy in its message. This episode may speak out against liberalism, socialism, the dark state, and religious organizations. It is possible that evil in politics, education, law, society, and religion will be discussed and exposed. However, we believe this podcast adds truth and value to a mature, disenfranchised audience who may be tired of apostate religions and wicked world systems. Listeners who are easily offended, overly sensitive, or have progressive leanings sympathetic to the topics we expose should be forewarned not to listen any further. We thank both those who choose to listen as well as those who choose not to listen. You've been warned. And now, let us get on with the show.
Hello, welcome to the Freedom Friday Hour, February 9th, 2018. I'm your host, Brother Kapow, for today. Talk about some weird stuff. You ready? Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner was a scientist, a philosopher, general, all-around smart guy. This article is written by Dylan Charles, who's the editor of Waking Times. Dylan Charles, editor of Waking Times. And he writes that Rudolf Steiner described the hostile spiritual beings who feed off your fear and anxiety. I thought this article was fascinating due to my strong, not a belief, because that sounds like that's just something I believe in. The strong fact that I know that demonic entities do in fact exist, and they exist for the sole purpose of destroying the human. I know this for a fact because I've experienced them over and over and over again. So has my wife. So has many of you. That's probably how you found this show at one point, because of spiritual warfare or Demons in My Marriage Bed, the book we wrote. And that's probably how you found your way to this podcast. If you don't believe in demons or that they're hostile towards humans, things like that. Yeah, I can't imagine you listening to a show like this, because it would be total, utter nonsense for people that were so intellectual that they had it all figured out intellectually, and there's no such thing as spiritual beings. Well, there is. Of course they are. Now, this is a belief. I know they exist, but this is a belief. I believe they're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim in the days prior to the flood, to their destruction. And I get that from the books of Enoch and Jubilee. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. There are some old school people who believe they're pre-Adamites or whatever. You know, they're definitely not fallen angels. Fallen angels are a different category, though those are entities themselves. And they are extraterrestrial in the sense that they're not from the earth here like humans, but unseen realm. But anyway, without getting into all of that, but that's, I personally believe that's where their origins are. It makes sense. It makes sense biblically. Yeah. But I do know one thing. They do exist, and they are hostile towards humans, and they hate us. All right. Okay. Dylan Charles is the editor of Waking Times. And here's what he writes. He talks about anxiety and depression and fear ravage a lot of us today in society. Excuse me, I still got this cough. I still got that little bit of this. I got a whole lot of this chest congestion still here. I went to the doctor after I spit a little blood ball up Monday morning. I coughed and I spit some blood out. And I said, okay, it's time to go see a doc. And I did. Nice gal. Give me some antibiotics and some other things. So I'm on the mend. So bear with me. So back to the story here. So the fear, the anxiety, all this stuff influence people. And this writer says it's an addition to the material influences that so many people have in their lives. And that they may also be under the influence of beings which exist in dimensions outside of ordinary perception. And of course, he talks about the reality that we don't see and feel or hear or taste and touch. And he gives all this statistics about dark energy and all this stuff. I'm not going to go into all of that. But what he does say is that few scientists, and you'd have to agree, are willing to explore metaphysics to examine any kind of life or entities beyond our ordinary perception in order to make a link or a connection between seen and unseen. Like the ancient shamans used to do, or ancient, cultures. In fact, our modern day Western culture and our thought is probably like the only, culture in history that doesn't believe in the spiritual to that degree. But yet, you are seeing a rise of witchcraft and Satanism and things like that. The people at the top, they certainly believe in these things. That's why they worship Lucifer for their success. They certainly do. They don't want you to believe so much because, they don't want you to find your way to God. But Rudolf Steiner, like I said, he was a prolific, gifted scientist, a philosopher. He was kind of esoteric. And he devoted a lot of his time to peering behind a veil, kind of looking at deeper things, the world beyond. So regarding anxiety and depression, he spoke of hostile beings in the spiritual world, which influence and feed off human emotion. It's what today some people call loosh. They feed off the loosh, like the Las Vegas shooting, October 1st of 2017. It created all this loosh. It still does today, all this fear, all this anxiety, all this, oh my God, trauma. And they feed off that. They eat off this kind of negativity, this loosh. That's why they love blood sacrifice, things like that. The worse, the more bizarre, the better. Child molestation, pedophilia, transgenderism. The more bizarre, the better. This kind of, it creates their food, their loosh. They're very negative. So anyway, Steiner spoke of this. He didn't call it loosh, but he talked about how they feed off this human emotion. And of course, many today would flatly reject that. Well, we don't care. People can believe whatever they believe. It matters little. But I know this to be true. And there's only one way out of it. And I think you know that too. Yet, it's an analysis, really, that many, many shamans and spiritual people in the past have embraced. Of course, ancient cultures. They knew this stuff. A lot of people access the spiritual dimensions. They try to help people, alleviate mental suffering. They know these things. And here's what Rudolf Steiner wrote. He said, there are beings in the spiritual realms for whom anxiety and fear emanating from human beings offer welcome food. When humans have no anxiety and fear, then these creatures starve. People not yet sufficiently convinced of this statement could understand it to be meant comparatively only. But for those who are familiar with this phenomenon, it is a reality. If fear and anxiety radiates from people and they break out in panic, then these creatures find welcome nutrition and they become more and more powerful. These beings are hostile towards humanity. Let me stop there. It's interesting to use the term, break out in panic, because you're dealing with the god Pan. And that's where you get your word panic, from the god Pan, to create that fear and that panic. It's demonic. So he goes on and he writes, everything that feeds on negative feelings, on anxiety, fear, and superstition, despair, or doubt are in reality hostile forces in supersensible worlds, launching cruel attacks on human beings while they are being fed. Therefore, it is above all necessary to begin with that the person who enters the spiritual world overcomes fear, feelings of helplessness, despair, and anxiety. He makes it sound like you can humanly do that. And you can't. There's only one way you can do that. You need the peace of God. If you don't have the peace of God, you can't overcome it. You're not designed to overcome these things. They're more powerful than you. But people don't even believe in them. So how are they fighting an enemy they don't even believe in? So, people are just loosh. Until you wake up, you're not going to get it. And only the peace of God can alleviate that. Else, you can't alleviate that kind of despair and anxiety that life brings. It's created that way. He goes on, but these are exactly the feelings that belong to contemporary culture and materialism because it estranges people from the spiritual world. It is especially suited to evoke hopelessness and fear of the unknown in people, thereby calling up the above-mentioned hostile forces against them. Rudolf Steiner wrote that. And I would have to agree, 100% there. And, that's why when you see the news and it's Trump against the Dems and the Me Too against the Hollywood and the Hollywood against this and the transgendered woman against, the feminist Rose and point, counterpoint, hate, constantly. It's that loosh, and it keeps... People are more interested in the iPhone 10. They're more interested in the Super Bowl or sports, for crying out loud, than these demonic spirits that are destroying their lives. Come on. It's amazing. Negative emotions are food for spirits. And of course, this writer says it's a concept. It's not readily accepted into everyday conversation. And there's skepticism, rigid skepticism towards this kind of thinking. The traditions of today have sought to expel ancient metaphysical wisdom and its practical application from our lives. And though scientific inquiry is exceptionally valuable, spiritual perception has always been a part of our experience. Now, this is written by Bernhard Gunther. I'm not sure who he is, but this quote is part of the article. And it says, and yet, despite the cynical skepticism, all of the ancient mystery schools, true shamanic insights, and esoteric teachings, much of which have been suppressed and are distorted over thousands of years for obvious reasons, have conveyed this truth for the ones with eyes to see and ears to hear, using their own language and symbolism, be it the general law of esoteric Christianity, archons, Gnostics, lords of destiny, Hermeticism, predator, flyers, the topics of all topics, shamanism, Castaneda, the evil magician, Gurdjieff, the shaitan, Sufism, the jinn, Arabian mythology, Wetiko, Native American spirituality, occult hostile forces, and on and on. He's naming all of these mystery schools and shamanic insights that believe in this stuff. And the writer Dylan Charles, he sums it up. He says, dealings with extrasensory or hyperdimensional beings have long been a part of our history and are directly accessible to any of us when proper practice and attention is given to the matter. He says, I know this to be true from my experience with plant medicine shamanism, where it's entirely possible to enter into states of consciousness where entire cosmologies of life exist and are available to interact with us. And you hear this with people who take ayahuasca and things like that. And they go into a whole different, dimensions. And he says, finding oneself in the rut of spiraling negative self-talk, depression, crippling anxiety, or uncontrollable irrational fear is a sign, as Steiner points out, of a disconnection from our true spiritual nature, exasperated by beings who operate in the spiritual realms. This is why some consider disorders like this to be spiritual illnesses. And until the rift is healed with proper attention given to the development of spirit, the feelings tend to exacerbate and drive one further into distress. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting article to kind of open up Freedom Friday because we talk so much about this very thing, the loosh that's created by these beings. So we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to come back and we'll talk about this woman that was in front of a church, and she was holding her eyeball, and she apparently had done so much damage to herself that her own eye, she was holding her own eye. So this is part of that. That's not normal, right? That's not normal human behavior, even with drugs, right? You know that. So this is part of that loosh, just talking about this creating this kind of anxiety and fear in somebody. And so the demonic forces are fed. And our whole planet's like that now. It's just one big feeding ground. And they feed on us like sheep and cattle. Only one way out, folks. You got to have the peace of God. And and even with that, you're still fighting them. Okay, it's not like it's over, but you're more aware, and you can recognize the attacks and stuff a lot more easier if your eyes are open than if you're asleep. If you're asleep, you're just food. So we'll be right back.
Demons in My Marriage Bed, a true story of spiritual warfare, changed the way my spouse and I conduct spiritual battle and has increased our alertness level to the tactics of Satan. This is an excellent training manual for building a stronger marriage by exposing the tactics your enemies use against you. From all online digital retailers, God bless you all.
I wish I would have entitled that book another title, because it sounds like it's just for marriages. It sounds like it's a marriage manual. And of course, if you're single or not married, or your spouse is not interested or something, you won't read the book. But it's not about that. It's not about marriage. It's about you as an individual. And it's about exactly what I just read to you, these demonic attacks that create loosh, that make food out of your fear and anxiety and the destruction of your life. And the second part of the book really is a manual. It's about what we learned going through the process of spiritual warfare, what we learned works, and the things that don't work, and what you have to do to get deliverance, self-deliverance. Because you're not going to be able to go to your local church today and get delivered and have a man of God lay hands on you and expel those demonic forces from your life or help you out, because that Christianity in that sense doesn't exist anymore, at least not in the most popular sense. All right. So that book will help you if you're having problems. If you're not having problems, then you're probably still asleep and not aware, because they're destroying you as we speak. Okay. Woman found holding her eyeball outside South Carolina church. Authorities say a woman was found holding her eyeball outside of a South Carolina church. The sheriff said that it took 2 to 3 deputies and 2 emergency medical workers, right? That's 5 people to subdue this woman in order to try to help her. A retired minister who helped the woman said it appeared she had intentionally hurt herself. He said the woman looked young and struggled against people who were trying to help her. The deputies said there was no crime that was committed, and they don't know why she did what she did. And of course, people who saw it at the church were freaked out. And so there was a counseling and a debriefing to help them deal with what happened. So, and here's what's interesting, is on the comments, right on this section, the first comment that appears is by some moron called Jara Jam. It says, demons aren't real. They're just made up things, blah, 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 blah. The world is in for some hurt if they continue to disbelieve in the spiritual. Drugs, witchcraft, occult, pagan practices, etc. We need the church to wake up to its role and begin addressing the situation. We have an enemy to defeat. Okay, well, this person apparently does believe in demons, but they were was probably answering somebody about, somebody else was probably saying that demons weren't real. So, there you have it. So there's a person going, hey, they are real. This is what's happening. And so it's out to, they're out to destroy the human. And they're successful, by the way. They're very successful today. And and I agree. We're on a world of hurt. And let me just to grant that point here. Now, I'm not a big sports guy. I had no idea it was even in the Super Bowl until like the day before. And the reason why and I've always been this way, but I'm just not interested in that kind of stuff. Now, the only sports I liked before I was a Christian were the sports of violence. I liked boxing and mixed martial arts and things like that. But today, none of them appeal to me. But I found, when I used to work, I'd better learn at least who was playing in the Super Bowl and who won and stuff before I went back to work, because I knew guys would be talking about it, and you would be like, you looked at as some kind of weirdo if you didn't know anything about it. In fact, on Facebook, I had posted this thing about Tom Brady kissing his son. Did everybody see that? If you haven't seen it, go to Fifth Hook Media Facebook. And I'd posted this thing about Tom Brady. There he is. He has a shirt off. He's getting a massage, and he calls his 10-year-old son in or something like that, and makes him kiss him right on the mouth, right on the lips. It's really, really, really strange. So I had posted that. And I talked about how Will Smith did the same thing with his kid, forcing him to kiss him on public television, all these different shows, and that it's pedophilia. It's a sacrifice of the children to the demonic Luciferian Satan worshippers out there. And Tom Brady is saying, "This is my kid. I'm forcing him to kiss me like this in a sexual way in public," because it was videotaped and put out. And I'm doing this to show you who I serve and who gives me the power to do what I do. Now, you might think I'm crazy, and I don't care, but I honestly know that to be true. So this one guy on Facebook is some meathead here in Vegas. I guess he didn't like what I said, and, said, "Give it a rest," and then he called me a pervert for saying it. Like I'm the one not... dude, I'm not the one kissing my son, French kissing him while I'm naked on a massage table, making him like kiss me sexual. I'm not that guy. You're that guy that's watching him in his little tight football pants. Dude, you're the perv. And Tom Brady's the perv, not Brother Kapow. Just thought I'd let you know. So anyway, these are the kind of, meatheads that are out there. They're more interested in sports than they are in even some concept that would, rock that world. I have no idea why he was on Fifth Hook Media in the first place. The stuff that we post there, but anyway, the troll man was there. I booted him off. I don't put up with anything. I don't put up with. I don't put up with it. This is from phillyvoice.com. Eagles fans, literally Eagles fan, one guy. It was probably this guy that lives here in Vegas that I was just talking about. Eagles fan literally eats horse poop after Super Bowl win. I think it was the same guy. Same guy called me a pervert. It's eating horse poop. Let's see. Here's the deal. And this also was sent to me by my good friend, John and Janie here in Mesquite. I wasn't aware of this article, and they made me aware of it. So they know what I like. This is right down my alley. So here's this guy. There's a video. It's making the rounds on the internet. It shows an Eagles fan, the football team, for those of you who are like me who don't care about this stuff. Football team, Eagles. An Eagles fan. This video shows this guy during the citywide after party literally eating horse poop. And, of course, I posted this on our Facebook. You can watch it if you want. It's disgusting. And it shows this guy actually eating horse poop. And he's so excited about the win that he bends down. And I'm sure there's a lot of alcohol involved in that. But he eats horse poop. Now, you think, well, how is that creating fear and loosh? It's creating this disgust, this... I mean, come on. You get to the point as a human being that you're so excited about a football team who won that you're going to eat animal feces. This is how you celebrate it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The mentality here, the zombie mentality. that we're all becoming here all around you every day. It's just more and more. Now, this next story is a little different because you hear me with my tinfoil hat on talk about these athletes and these movie stars and things like that. And, that I think they're genetically modified, that I think they're hybrids. They're alien human hybrids. When I mean aliens, I don't mean from Alpha, Centauri. I mean demonic fallen angel hybrid, modern day Nephies. And, most, if you watch, YouTube, you're probably familiar with Mr. E. Mr. E's great because he finds trannies everywhere. And I have to agree with him. When I first watched him, I thought he was crazy. And then after you watch him for a while and he points these things out, you go, yeah, they're all trannies. And they all look like trannies. And in fact, I could spot them now. But even he has different theories. He doesn't come out and says, I absolutely know this to be true because of this and this. He just says, this is the way they look. It's different. They look like men dressed as women, trannies. And sometimes men look like effeminate, that they were women, F to M, female to male. But anyway, my particular theory, once again, it's a theory, but I just think it's genetic. I think they're modified, and that's the way they look. Ms. Kapow and I saw a movie the other day. It's an older movie, I think 2001. We had seen it years ago, but we wanted to watch it again now that, we see things a little differently in life. And it's called AI by Spielberg, and about this little kid, this little 11-year-old kid who's a robot that this family takes in, and he's the first one to give the ability to love. It's a bizarre movie, absolutely bizarre. It was so depressing, to tell you the truth, but it was very educational in the sense of modern day society. And it's amazing to look at this thing going, wow, this thing came out 17 years ago. And you got to figure that, the book was written even before that in a concept. I mean, probably at least 20, 25 years ago. And then here we are today, especially with sex bots and things like that. And the movie's just, wow, so very predictive. Of course, the whole thing is, you feel sorry for the robot. You feel sorry for, these things. There's aliens in the movie that are good, obviously. Good aliens. And then, of course, the humans that want to destroy these things because they would proliferate and take over the human race, they were the bad guys. So that's, there's an agenda there, obviously. But it was a good movie in the sense of what I'm talking about, these synthetics. And so you've heard me talk about, that's why they can act, because they're an empty soulless shell created in a lab or created on a spaceship or genetically modified, when their parents were abducted or given over to Satan or whatever. And they're an empty shell. And so they can act because the demonic spirit then inhabits that shell to create that character, Johnny Depp characters. You know what I mean? So, and they play the music they do. They have muses, the whole bit. So here's this kid. I don't know. Like I said, I don't follow sports, so I don't know who he is, but his name is Connor McDavid. And this is from SB Nation. It's a sports page. And it just caught my attention, the title. But it says, if Connor McDavid isn't from Earth, which planet is he from? And he says, surely there's a reasonable explanation here. And I just thought that was interesting. Now, they're writing this article very tongue-in-cheek and being, poking fun at it. But I think just the fact that they're asking this question is interesting. And they go on, they say, we've long suspected that Connor McDavid is not from this planet, given that he can do on the ice. And apparently he is he plays for the Edmonton Oilers hockey team. And his teammate, Leon Draisaitl, something like that, said he might have let the cat or the extraterrestrial out of the bag after the team's victory Monday night. And here's what he wrote. His teammate says, it seems like he's from another planet. It's not fair. This is his teammate wrote this. It seems like he's from another planet. It's not fair. Apparently this Connor is only 21 years old, and he does things in hockey on the ice that apparently shouldn't be humanly possible. The suggestion came in response to McDavid's latest, greatest display of absurdity on the ice. A 4-goal game against the league-leading Lightning, highlighted by a full-speed snipe squeezed in a tight window behind the goaltender and under the crossbar that seemed to be sealed off. It was, as his teammate said, wasn't fair. Wow. Except that's the thing. McDavid apparently isn't of this world. He might have the appearance of a 21-year-old guy from Ontario. This is the article, by the way. But no human being could possibly be that good at hockey while looking so uncomfortable trying to take a picture. See, they don't have those social skills because they don't have a soul. They're devoid. The article says he's clearly an alien who has mastered the craft of ice skating but remains befuddled by the social mores of us bizarre creatures. But if McDavid isn't from our beloved planet Earth, then where's he from? Let's begin our important investigation. So they go on and they talk about Mars or Venus. And, they're just doing all this stuff, kind of poking fun, like, where do you get these skills at? And, that's about it. But I just thought that was interesting that even people of the world are seeing these hybrids, these Nephilims, with these kings of the earth with these incredible powers going, ugh, something's odd about this. And see, before, when they're mixed in with other humans, maybe they didn't stand out so much. But now you got more and more and more of them. They just dominate the sports, the entertainment field, the political field. And so now they have to compete against each other, and humans just can't compete against this. It's kind of like, when athletes used to use steroids, right? Regular athletes couldn't compete against this. Well, can you imagine if you're competing against something that was bred to do what it does? Yeah. I know. Tinfoil hat time. I don't care. It makes perfect sense to me. It really does. It makes perfect sense to me. Have you heard about this circus child sex ring there in, I think it's Sydney, Australia? Crazy, sick stuff. Now, this is, like I said last week, this is the stuff that just comes out. These are the people who get caught. Can you imagine what's going on next door? Can you imagine what's going on in your community right now? This isn't about sex. This isn't about a bunch of perverts, a bunch of pedophiles going, man, I like little boys. This is about satanic ritual worship. This is the ritual within the circle, folks. This is all praise to their God. This is all glory to their God. They're feeding their gods. They're creating the Loosh. Yeah, this is a circus child sex ring. It's 7 circus school members. All of them are female, too, except one. There's one 52-year-old man. The only one that actually had intercourse with these children under 8 years old was a 58-year-old woman. So you can't tell me she woke up one day and said, I want me a little 7-year-old boy to have sex with. This ain't about sex. It's about ritual. It's about loosh. It's about demonic feeding. Apparently they performed sadistic blood and sex rituals on 3 boys under 8. Yeah. It's a circus school. Yeah. Could you imagine that? Right there, they should be thrown in jail for having a school called the circus school. Now, I doubt if they had the school was really intended to create the circus acts. It was probably intended to attract children, like a lot of these weirdos do. So 7 members of the Western Sydney Circus Training School were arrested over abuse of 3 boys under the age of 8. There was 4 women, 2 men. Sorry, I said 1 man, so 2 men, and a teenage girl. They all will face 127 charges related to the alleged ongoing torture between 2014 and 2016. And this was in the Blue Mountains south of, or New South Wales. Australia's Daily Telegraph claims the alleged abuse included sadistic blood rituals. The 7 arrested all belong to the Arcade Circus that promotes itself as a family-friendly environment. The school offers classes in juggling, aerial skills, acrobatics, and unicycle riding. And so detectives from the Child Abuse and Sex Crimes Squad established a strike force in July to investigate the reports, and sure enough, So they made some arrests. The 58-year-old woman is the ringleader. No pun intended. She's a ringleader. And, of course, she denies it. She says all students are treated as equals and every student will feel welcome from their first day. I bet, baby. And she's been charged with 43 offenses, including aggravated sexual assault of a child under 10, sexual intercourse with a child under 10, and aggravated kidnapping. Yeah. She started the arcade circus school in 2009 and believes she was tragically lost from the back of a traveling circus truck shortly after birth. So she wanted to help other people by opening a school to become a circus clown. They all say they didn't do it. 3 women and a man will face 69 charges relating to the alleged ongoing abuse. 4 accused are linked to a circus school in Katoomba. Anyway. Pretty bad stuff. Let's see. Here's the charges. A 26-year-old Katoomba woman was charged with 13 offenses. Aggravated sex assault. Detained for advantage. A 29-year-old Canterbury woman was charged with 5 counts of aggravated sexual assault. In company, deprived liberty, 3 counts of common assault. A 52-year-old man was charged with 3 counts of sexual assault, male child abuse material, and using a child under 14 to make abuse material. And the 58-year-old ringleader, this woman was charged with 43 offenses, sexual assault on a child under 10, sexual intercourse with a child under 10, aggravated kidnapping, the whole bit. So, it's every day. Every week, I'm reporting some bizarre child sex, weird thing, crime, loosh creating story. Every week. It's common. More and more common. Bizarre. The zombies are here. People have been taken over. One last story here. This is a naked man. And he's caught riding a stationary bike in a community gym. And I don't think that's cool. This is Orlando, Florida. And this just tells you this. It's just a demonic takeover of people. They're gone. And I don't know at what point, you get where is it like the majority of people like this? I mean, at what point does it all, how do the rest of us protect ourselves from this kind of stuff? It's just once in a while. It's all the time now. There's this man arrested after residents of an Orlando apartment complex caught him on video working out in their community gym, but he was bone naked. Deputies say they arrived at the Andover Place Apartments in Orlando, where the leasing consultant informed them that she witnessed a attendant working out naked in the community gym. His name is Kerry Haynes. So a maintenance worker at the apartment complex told deputies he walked over to the gym, saw the guy, and the worker told deputies he then saw this Haynes guy riding a stationary bike, butt naked. That's hard to. Oh man, that's. You don't want to imagine that. The arrest report states the worker asked Haynes what he was doing, and Haynes replied, I'm working out. And then the worker told Haynes that they had contacted the police. And so Haynes left the gym, and the worker captured the whole thing on video, and he gave it to the deputies as evidence. But the deputies said that when Haynes had left the gym, instead of going home and putting on some chonies, they were flagged down by a landscaping employee at the complex who told him that the same naked guy was now laying in the grass, masturbating by the community pond. And this guy also was urinating in the community pond. So he was masturbating and urinating and rolling around the grass, just having a good old time, kind of like a monkey or a dog. So the deputies found Haynes masturbating near the pond. They escorted him back to his apartment. And they found his clothes lying on the living room floor. So the leasing consultant had told deputies that this guy has been exhibiting naked acts like this around the complex for about 2 weeks now. So he didn't just wake up and decide to do this. For 2 weeks, he's been doing this. 2 weeks. He just now got caught. Crazy world that just shows you we're not in Kansas anymore. All right. Freedom Friday out. You guys have a good weekend.